You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 414, Kenobi. Let's just call this Obi-Wan Kenobi, the final hype. So, a long-standing tradition here on the Cantina Cast where days, sometimes maybe weeks before the premiere of a big show, big movie, we break down all of the details and speculate on things that we hope to see, hope you want to see, and really kind of have fun with this. So we've got a lot to discuss tonight because we are on the cusp. I think, what are we, technically 5 days away now at this point for the premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the much-anticipated series. And speaking of much anticipated, I've been waiting for you all night, dude. So welcome to the show. Jonesy's with us here tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say, speaking of fun.
Oh,
but no.
No, not a
yeah,
word.
Let's not get out of character here.
Giggles is the word that I use to associate.
That's my nickname. Yeah.
Is it really? Oh, wow. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. It is. Man, I've had to start thinking, okay, what day is it? When do we start getting ready for celebration? When do I need to pack? How many days am I working this week? It's stressful, man.
Have you packed anything yet?
I thought about packing.
Yeah.
But no. No, I'll start doing some of it tomorrow. I'll do preliminary tomorrow, laundry, all that good stuff. And then I took Tuesday off. So I'm going to take Tuesday off to be able to break everything down and kind of do it right. So Tuesday will be the big pack day, of course. What about you? Well, you've been packing all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah, I've got, I have actually made my list. I've done that at least. So
I did that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a gigantic checklist. Yeah.
Yep. And I'll just periodically, something pops in my head, I'll add it to the list and that kind of thing. But no, I've not packed anything yet. I went and bought my travel size toiletries, if you want to know.
Oh, that's vital.
It's vital. So yeah, and if anybody doesn't know, Jonesy and I, along with some other folks, are going to be at what are we doing? A bed and breakfast, I think we're sharing, or some B&B.
It's like it's an Airbnb, but it's more of like almost like a condo type of Airbnb. I think it's owned by a resort or something like that. So
okay,
yeah, we'll be
partying, man. No,
well, what's funny is Formalis is in Vegas right now, so he took all these pictures of being in Vegas. I just hope he survives and makes it to California because he's going straight to Anaheim after that.
Yeah,
and he's been off the map here for 24 hours, so we'll have to see.
Well, as long as you and I aren't hungover, I think that's probably okay.
Oh yeah, there's no worries of that. Yeah, we're good.
We're good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's in the air. I mean, it's been in the air for the last week, but something about this weekend, just at least on Twitter, it's just been, like rabid in terms of the number of posts and people posting their suitcases and stuff they're bringing. And
oh yeah,
I've seen
the people coming from overseas are already they're packing and leaving on a plane today, tomorrow, and
yep.
And you're right, man. On the Facebook group, there's a Facebook group for Star Wars Celebration, and oh my gosh, like all of the giveaway things that people are bringing, they're printing out patches, they're printing out stickers, they've got buttons, they've got all sorts of other creative things too that I would never have thought of for this whole, just for the whole swapping of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing so much effort people put into it. And it's not just normal, Star Warsy thing or a podcast like us. Some people just, it's a saying or something like that. They just enjoy it. Just is fun for them. And man, the whole swap aspect of this thing is a huge deal. And from there, it's where I've kind of felt the energy. I was like, man, people are really, I underestimated how much people would be like excited about this event.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Super Bowl. This is like the big dance, the big wedding.
We can't say that it's like the big game, not the Super Bowl. Big game.
Oh, right. Yeah. Big game. Copyright. But no, it should be fun. I'm not. I think I'm working all the way till Tuesday, and then I'll leave first thing Friday or Wednesday morning, like at 6 a.m., 5 a.m. It's really early, but that's not. Yeah. I don't mind that so much.
What's funny is you get in after us, right?
So I officially land. I looked at it. I officially land like at 9:53 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
But and this is a friendly reminder to anybody else. They will allow you to go check in, do your COVID-19 stuff, all that on Wednesday. In fact, they're encouraging people because what it sounds like is a lot of people are going to wait till Thursday, and you're screwed. You're not going to get in. Everybody's going to slam in there on Thursday. So I think they're opening at 10 a.m. or something like that is what I saw, or 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. somewhere around there.
Yeah, 1 p.m. because we also have to go pick up our speaker badges and stuff.
Yep. So I'm going to try to knock that out. I think I'll take a Lyft or something out there.
So there's a
directly
check-in.
there.
There's a check-in process. I thought it was going to be like a clear process. They had something else that they were advertising, but it hadn't seemed set up yet.
Yeah, I was speaking specifically to the speaker badges that we've got to go do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said COVID-19 check.
Well, there is a health check. I mean, they've got to do something, right? I mean, they're making you bring your cards. So
Oh,
they're not
yeah.
going on an honor system. So there's got to be some way to check in there, but
I
we'll see.
would be surprised.
Let's see. Beyond that, no, I'm excited. Can't wait.
I'm actually hoping. I saw Mike Chen's going to be signing, so I may actually bring my Brotherhood book just in case there's an opportunity for us to bump into Mike Chen.
I saw that he's going to be over at a booth. He kind of listed that and said, "Hey, come by and swing by. I'll sign whatever." I haven't got my Goldsboro edition in yet. That's what I was hoping to get signed. Although it is already signed. Never mind. I don't guess
I was about to say you don't need it signed twice. That's just greedy.
Yeah, no, I won't. But the Goldsboro or the version that I have is one of the ones I'm going to give away when we do our show on Thursday. So, all right, we're just kind of rambling on here.
Yeah.
I got one bit of piece of news, and then we'll just roll right into
But it's
this
relevant.
Final Hype show. Yeah, it is. So Deborah Chow last week came out and was talking, and there's been a number of Entertainment Weekly articles that have already sprung up, and again, they're on the press tour right now. It's hype is at an all-time high. But there was one thing that stood out last week, and she had mentioned that I guess she confirmed that the android that we see in the trailer that we thought was Forlom is not Forlom. It is indeed a similar droid, but not Forlom. And I hadn't really put much thought into it other than like, oh, okay, that's cool. We get a new droid. But you had a very interesting theory that I thought, oh, that's really cool. I hope they do that. What was that?
Yeah, and it's actually a great tie-in to Mandalorian. It would be Q90 or Zero, right? From the episode where Mando teams up with the ragtag group that he used to hang with. And so with Bill Burr's character and all of them. And so, yeah, that'd be a pretty cool tie-in. I think we will talk about cameos and stuff later, but I think that would kind of fit as a cameo and kind of right in front of us too. And I think I don't know if we speculated that it might be Zero. And when we were kind of talking about who the character was, so maybe we've already said this before, but that was the first character to pop in my head that, that looks like that kind of droid.
Yeah, and that's the same one that the frog lady was using to. She ends up jacking into to speak later, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, that'd be a nice little Easter egg kind of tie-in. So we'll see. At least, I'm glad she confirmed that. There was a part of me that was cool. It's Forlom, and then the part of me was kind of like, oh, cool, it's Forlom. So,
well, but when they said there were bounty hunters, I mean, logical conclusion, right?
Yeah, right. And
especially this era,
right? And we're going to get into some speculation about other particular bounty hunters that we may or may not see. In fact, I was going to go through and start listing them all when we got there, and I was like, I'm just going to put bounty hunters, and I think that's what I did, if I'm not mistaken. No, I didn't. We'll update that, but there was just so many, because once you start down one, you can't help but start listing all the other ones. So I think the question is just going to be, will there be infamous bounty hunters that we're already familiar with as a cameo or a walk-on type presence type thing? And we'll speculate on that in just a little bit. Anything else that came up today? I've not been really following news much, and usually on Sundays, not a whole lot happens. But
yeah, pretty quiet. It's not like a Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. Ugh. Okay, well, let's do this. So the way I thought we'd do this is just kind of do a tale of the tape, if you will, kind of a recap of everything that we know from a production perspective, and then we'll get into some of the questions about things that we hope to see, speculate on, discuss, that sort of thing. So for anybody that's been under a rock or I don't know, in hell for the last 3 years, there's a new series coming out called Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's see. So for this one, they've got a total of 6 episodes. The first episode is going to air, of course, this Friday. We'll get 2 episodes, actually, this Friday. And this will take us all the way up until June 15th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, June 15th will be the last episode. So it feels like a really short window from that perspective, right? I mean, it feels like it's 2 weeks rather than 3. Plus, we're going to get slammed with the first 2 episodes while we're at Celebration, while Celebration is going on. So that'll be that'll be fun to dissect. We haven't really put a lot of thought into that, but what do you think of the schedule? What do you think about 6 episodes? How about that? Because Deborah Chow, I'm going to jump ahead just really quickly, and then I'll let you talk. So Deborah Chow is directing all 6 of these episodes. We've got a number of different writers, but she's behind the lens on all of these. So it's almost like she's been given a 6-hour movie ish, assuming that they're under an hour each. But how do you feel about that?
Well, June 22nd would be the last episode, by the way, if we have 6, right? Yes.
I don't know. I just took whatever.
But anyway,
Star
so
Wars
we'll go
website
through
had.
most of June. I like that Deborah Chow's the showrunner for this. She's not the writer, but I think it's great. I like that consistency in the director chair, and what we've seen of her in her other work, just leads us to believe that she's going to do a great job here. And the way that I think what's the best about what Deborah Chow has been brought into some of this is that she understands the character aspect of that in the story. So for her to be able to evolve that herself and to really take what the writers had, and we know they had to do a lot of, we'll talk about the writers in a second, but we know there's been a lot of rework of this over the years, but for her to be able to help shape that at the same time, I think across those episodes, I think that's going to be, it's a really great opportunity that we haven't seen in the other content yet in the more modern Star Wars storytelling. And so to be able to do that over 6 episodes, I think 6 episodes is probably a good length here, and with what we need to tell, because you always run into the concern about revealing too much, right? You have too much time, or do you not have enough time? I think with this one, 6 is probably should be more than enough time for us to be able to get a really good idea of where Obi-Wan's been, where is he at now? What are the conflicts that they're experiencing? And then be able to resolve all the conflict and the questions that come up as a result of that, and hopefully leave us with really a few more questions than we had before.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited personally. I mean, Deborah Chow, I was first introduced to her, like I think many of us maybe that sounds probably obtuse, but at least for me, I wasn't really familiar with what the work that she had done until she came on to Mandalorian.
Right.
And I think we spoke ad nauseum of just how impressed we were with her directing abilities and what she brought to the show. And so when she was tagged as the director for this series, I was pretty darn excited. And the fact that now she's been giving all 6 of them, that's the one part that I wasn't really sure of, obviously, going into this, was whether or not she was just one of the directors or would she be directing all 6 of them. I love the fact that she's got all 6, because for me, if you think about some of the criticism that we've had for the sequel trilogy and having those despairing views and direction and even art direction to some extent with the sequel trilogy, we don't have that here. We've got a consistent through line, right, with the direction of this show beginning to end, from a single person and someone who's already proven themselves to have the chops to bring a very creative and amazing story or stories in The Mandalorian and now through Kenobi. So
yeah, it's similar. If you have a different artist for different material in a series, you can tell that they just have different styles and whatnot. And director is very much the same way. It's a different type of art style, but you can definitely see the ones that you like and which ones you maybe don't gravitate towards, and how they edit and how they approach it. And I always love just hearing them speak, because that's the part that you really get an idea for who they are, and well, one, if they care for the content, but also how much they care for the content and how much they care for the people around them, in order to make a really to make the story really come to life.
Excuse me. Okay, so that kind of takes care of the direction. As far as the writers, and I did get a chance to kind of go through and look through a couple of these writers. I'm not familiar with a lot of their works. That's not a bad thing.
And there's like 5 or 6 altogether when you talk about the original scripts as well as where they've gone these days. So it's a bit hit and miss. Yeah.
I think the official writers are Stuart Beattie, Hussein Amini, and then there's some teleplay folks in here like Joby Harold. Joby Harold's he's credited for the first 2 episodes at least. Hannah Friedman is another one that came up, and Andrew Stanton. And that pretty much rounds out the group of writers that have been assigned. They're kind of all over the place. Now, the cool thing about this is, again, if you go back and look at some of the articles that have been out this last week, and when Deborah Chow is talking about the writers, you get a sense that she definitely had a say in the writing. And for a lot of the more creative pieces, some of the more academic foundational pieces of Star Wars, specifically around Kenobi, Vader, that relationship, they leaned heavily on Dave Filoni to come up with these ideas, right? So the writers were kind of putting their thoughts, Chow's, Filoni's down on paper. But again, we still have a very consistent creative core group of people that are putting the story out. So the fact that Filoni's tied to all of this bodes well, I think, for a lot of people, especially for anyone that feels like, the spirit or, is still intact, or that preserving that relationship that Lucas was so fond of between Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and how that kind of transpired and turns into the relationship that we know them to have later on. All that should still be intact, right? All theoretically speaking, that should all still be there. So
yeah, it's its own type of continuity of sorts. We talk about continuity more from an accuracy standpoint, especially as material evolves and goes through different people. I think also just the story itself, and have that confidence that the people involved are respecting and honoring that work. And really, if they're making a change, there's usually a very particular reason why they're making that slight adjustment, but they're not going to go and completely undo anything that's been that's come previous to it. They'll just build on top of it. I think one of the interesting things with all of this, though, is that they were talking a little bit more about. I think it was Deborah Chow was talking about where this fit in the timeline. Like, what's it more like? Where they were talking about who might show up, I think, and she's like, really, this aligns more with the prequels than anything else. And I mean, we've definitely got that feel so far that this definitely pulls on everything that we saw in those first three movies, or in the the prequel trilogy. And then I love how Brotherhood up here behind me really does a great job of really energizing you. And some of our listeners on Discord have been rereading Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith novelizations too, getting ready for this, because they feel like it's just further enhancing not only what Mike Chen brought us, but what we're anticipating with Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Yeah, we should do that, like Tuesday night, or Thursday night. Depending on what time we get back from the podcast meetup, we should probably get together and just all crash on the couch there and watch Revenge of the Sith. Or hell, let's just watch all three of them. Why not?
We don't have time.
I know it's wishful thinking, right?
Right.
It's yeah. Well, maybe more on that later, because it does feel like it feels like a work trip for us. Unfortunately, that's how it felt last year, and already it feels this way this year. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very grateful and thankful and blessed.
This is a pretty great kind of work, but but it is. It's not just showing up for vacation and kind of heading where you need to. It's a mix, but it's the best kind of mix.
Yeah, we got shows to do, man. And stuff to talk about. Okay, so that takes care of the writers. As far as like the music goes, now Natalie Holt is the primary composer for this.
Probably not a name most people know very well.
Yeah,
but she was on Loki though, so she did Loki, which I thought was a pretty good score. I think it really fit. It's not always like, did you like the music? It's, did it fit the story and did it fit the visuals, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think with Loki, I think it definitely hit the mark for kind of an odd show and this kind of creepy atmosphere sometimes. So I think it was really, I thought it was really neat. So I'm excited to see what she can do. And of course, she's the first female composer for Star Wars. So again, another first for us here. And I think that's really exciting as well. But man, an accomplished violinist, an accomplished composer from the UK. I mean, she's performed for Prince Harry and all sorts of stuff. So she's got the chops.
Right. And she's also the, I think they were talking to her and Chow about the music. And she had said that she was going to stay more traditional in terms of the music. So it does sound like she's not going to, I want anybody to think she's going to get out there and do some weird things or fringe type things because of Loki. It does sound like she's going to try to stay in that same spirit and that same flavor of what John Williams brought to us with the prequel trilogy. So that sounds good. However, I did see something also. There was a piece in there that said Holt had used a hunting horn and some unusual percussion instruments played by Brian Kilgore to create the sound of the Inquisitors. And she said, it stirs your guts. It's so haunting. It's that jarring, rhythmic texture. So it sounds like they're getting their own kind of tune. I mean, in Rebels, they had their own tune, but it was very similar to, what you would think Sith. It was very traditional, I guess, in that sense. So it does sound like she may have stepped outside the box just a little bit with coming up with the Inquisitors theme. Which
I hope so. I think they're a group that should have their own because they're not Sith, and they're just in this different place. So I think that's really exciting that they'll have their own theme of sorts. I think that's really cool.
Yep. And then, of course, we got Big JW coming in. And,
J-Dubs.
coming in and giving us the theme, the main theme, the Kenobi theme, as Kenobi never had one. It's just so funny. You think about the history of the soundtracks, and it was like few and far between that anybody had their own theme, right? With the original trilogy, and it seems like ever since the prequel trilogy and then the sequel trilogy, and now we keep coming back to like a solo theme and a Kenobi theme, and I just wonder like why Williams never did that. I mean, it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, he nailed it, right? I mean, there's no criticism towards him. But I'd always wondered why some characters had themes and others did not. And I don't know if that was by the direct, was that Lucas kind of steering him that way? Was it his own, creativity? We know that Lucas would basically say, go create a theme, and John Williams would just do it. There really wasn't a lot of direction there, and there really wasn't a lot of feedback. I mean, he pretty much was on board with everything that Williams had ever done. It was very minor tweaks that he would ask him to do. So it's a very interesting thought process or production process there.
Right. So
Talking about Thundercat.
Well, Jeff, he said, I just assumed the Inquisitors would rock some Daft Punk energy on their theme. So I said, maybe some Thundercat. We've got Thundercat on the payroll now. So
yeah, right. He was on XM radio the other day. He's playing some of his favorite music, and it was pretty fun to listen to. He never mentioned Star Wars once, but it was fun to listen to. Okay, and then let's see. I think that's about all I've got in terms. I was going to get into the production stuff, but I think everybody knows it. The big reveal was back in 2019.
Yeah,
when he and what's her name were up there on stage, Kathleen Kennedy, and they broke the news that this was going to happen. But that was still after. I mean, that was like 6 years after rumors first started, right? That they were going to.
It took us another 3 to get here. Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a long journey. And there's different iterations of, like you mentioned earlier, some of the scripts that were preliminary scripts that were being done for the movie before that got kind of canceled, and Iger coming in and shifting over to television. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know. We still don't know how long these episodes are going to be. I'm hoping they pull a Stranger Things 4 and give us like an hour and a half, 2-hour episodes, but doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Still betting in this 45 to 52 range.
Yeah,
anything over 45, we should be pretty happy with.
Yeah, for sure. So that's probably going to be where we land.
All right. So Albert, what are you looking forward to most in the series? Like, if you had to narrow it down to just one or two things, what is it that you really have to have coming into this?
Well, so what I'm looking forward to and what I have to have are, I think, two different things. But if I had to look for the things I'm looking forward to, I'm going to have to just be a Neanderthal and say, I want to see them fighting with lightsabers. I'm really looking forward to the lightsaber fights, and seeing how that recontextualizes some of the scenes and some of the lines that we get from A New Hope. It's no secret at this point that I mean, Deborah Chow's on record as saying herself that it does do that. I want to know to what extent, and even then, not only in New Hope, but Return of the Jedi, right? There's scenes in there, some of those lines in there that we've dissected and talked about. I want to see the context there, and just see how that changes. I'm also looking forward to, I'll come back to the actual series in a second, but I'm also looking forward to how this reshapes how we view Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope and Return of the Jedi and Anakin, and just in general, and Vader, and even stuff like, Twilight of the Apprentice and the Ahsoka confrontation that he and she have during the final season there of final episode of season 2. Boy, my words are getting all tied up tonight. So those are definitely things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the cameos, but the more I've been sitting and thinking about this, I don't know that we're going to have a lot of cameos.
I don't know if it works really well for this type of series. Yeah.
Right. And that's okay. I was kind of hoping this would be another, if they're going by the Marvel recipe and there'd be some jumping off points and introducing characters that would suddenly spin up a little bit later. I don't see that happening as much anymore. I think I was really excited about that going into this, just even a few weeks ago. Let's see. As far as
I think that tells you, though, the emotional side of this is trumping some of the other external, kind of pleasure points, if you will, the things that just kind of give you that instant amount of I don't know, excitedness and enhanced kind of, the enthusiasm about it. And I think that's because the story itself seems to be taking on a bit more serious tone, to where cameos don't really fit into that very well, except in a very specific kind of way.
Yeah, no, for sure. What about you?
Oh
What are you
man, I
looking
mean,
forward to?
the given is going to be Vader and Kenobi. What does it do to change the way that we look at A New Hope? I think in particular, I think Revenge of the Sith. I think we have a pretty good idea of where that is. I don't anticipate a lot of change there, but A New Hope, I I would be shocked if we did not get some different take on that, or at least a new debate point. But one thing that's come more so lately that I'm really looking forward to is actually Riva. I'm really interested to know just more about her
Hmm.
and to see where she comes from, and to hopefully, as an extension of that, continue to get a little bit more backstory on the Inquisitors and how they really work into all of this, and how they work into the relationship with Vader. I really want to see that on screen. I know we've got some of it in the comic books, but I would really love to get that story on screen in any kind of way. And this is a fantastic opportunity to do that. So I'm really looking forward to that aspect too. But if I had to narrow it down to just a couple, I mean, one's a given, but I think this other one is really something for as a comic book geek. That's something that I'm really looking to to solidify and enhance that material as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Reva, we've talked about her now a few times, and I think we're both in agreement here that there's going to be a substantial story there. Maybe not in terms of length, but just in terms of the impact and what she's going to bring to the story, and how I wouldn't say again not pivotal, but I think she has a role to play in all of this, believe it or not. So
Yeah,
it's easy to say it's just going to be Kenobi and Vader, and we're just leading up to it. Yeah. However, I think there's a piece there that she's linked to in some way, and that's certainly going to be interesting when they finally give us that reveal. Um, as far as the characters, I did want to mention Ken brought her up, but we earlier this week we were also given a quote. Who was it? Was it Rupert? Is
I
it
think it was
Fiend?
Moses Ingram on
Oh,
it.
was it? No, I think it was Rupert. 'Cause he was talking about the Inquisitor. Unless Ingram did the same thing, but Rupert, I think it's Fiend, right? The guy that plays the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
He was given an interview this week, and they asked him about the lightsabers and how cool those were, and he went on and on about how wonderful they were. But he also said that he can fly with them, and so that is we were talking just last week, speculating about whether or not we would see that. I think we were kind of assuming that we wouldn't see it. That if nothing else, it would be kind of a spinning and easing your way down rather than taking off. But it sounds like this is going to be the full deal. Like they are going to take off with these flying lightsabers, which is fine. I mean, as a Rebels fan, I don't know. I don't have a problem with this at all. I think there are
Right.
a lot of people out there that don't like this, don't want to see it. Called it blasphemy when it came out during Rebels. There was a fun little debate that we had for almost 3 years or
I
two
don't
and
know
a
how
half
that's
years.
blasphemous, but all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't reopen that wound here.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it sounds like we're at least going to get we're going to get some aspect of that, of them using the lightsabers to fly around in. But anything else that stands out for you? I guess as far as any
I think what was
recent
interesting
revelations?
about I think what was interesting about Rupert Friend's commentary on that is that he didn't watch Rebels
Mm,
intentionally
yeah.
in order to bring in a fresh approach to these characters. So I'm really curious how that changes, if it does at all, what we see on screen of what we know from the Grand Inquisitor and the relationships with the Inquisitors to his performance of bringing that character to life. I mean, coupled with whatever the writing looks like. So that was a very interesting comment of his I was not expecting, because usually what's the first thing that everybody goes and does? They go back and consume
Hmm.
every bit of material. And who was it? Maybe it was Hayden Christensen that went back and rewatched. No, it couldn't have been. Yeah, it may have been that. I mean, he may have been when they went to go watch Rebels or some Clone Wars or something like that.
Hmm.
I think it may have been him. Someone might correct me in the chat, but again, you just go in, you start consuming everything you can as an actor to be able to figure out where these characters have been, where they're going, how you might want to take them in a certain direction depending on what you're reading in the script.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that his approach was very counterintuitive to what most actors, tend to do.
I don't know how I feel about that. I think on one hand, so I truly believe, as much as this sounds crazy, that you don't necessarily have to, right? It's certainly, for me, it feels like that's what I would do personally. But there are a number of actors out there who don't do this, and there are a number of writers who don't go and read and consume every last bit of piece of information or material before they go in and write, like an episode for a TV series
And they don't
or
want that influence or bias on them
exactly right.
to
And
constrain their creative process. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not to say that they go in blind. They don't go in blind. They're giving beats and they know the story, and they may have they sometimes they'll go and interview like the Filonis or the Chows or the Favreaus and just kind of get their thoughts and kind of get what they're feeling and get and work from that, right? I think there's some fundamental core elements of a story or core elements of a character that you just know are there and they're non-negotiable. And I would assume that that's exactly what happened. I don't know that you have to go and consume everything. Now, for the people that do that, I think that's where we find they tend to sneak in little bits and pieces that are more kind of winks to the audience sometimes in the portrayals or in the writing itself. There's some, little elbow nudges to, or that sort of thing to old stuff that had been written, whether it be in Legends or a previous episode, that sort of stuff. So I think there's something to be said about both of them, but it doesn't concern me. I don't really think so. But to your point though, would be interesting is if for some reason he does something or says something or acts a certain way that's not in line with what we know as from Rebels. For me personally, I think that would be a little jarring because I mean, we know the Grand Inquisitor so well. I do, and anybody that's a Rebels fan or Star Wars fan that's watched that series a million times, we know exactly how he acts and how he behaves, and I don't know how that would really translate. Would that be some level of deterioration about the I don't know the integrity of Rebels or that character at least, right? Is there now are we getting more into this trumps that, and it's not all canon again?
Well,
I mean, it seems
conversely,
severe,
though, right? But conversely, I think you have not everybody watched Rebels, right? Sure, the hardcore Star Wars fans did, and maybe even the slightly above average. I don't mean that in a condescending way, but more skewing more to the enthusiast side of Star Wars may have watched some of it or maybe all of it. So I think with a character like that, you probably do have a little bit more latitude with him on screen, especially if he's in somewhat of a limited capacity, which we're kind of expecting might be the case here, as Reva tends to take most of that attention. So you have a little bit more flexibility and leeway with how you're going to present the character without needing to do all of that with it. But I'm with you, though. Just because someone doesn't go in and consume everything on the planet, they're definitely having interviews and conversations with others, and they'd rather have the guideposts, right? Just kind of tell me where the lanes are a little bit here, what their motivation and the things. And I'm not an actor. I don't know what the hell they're thinking when they go. I don't know how people act. It's incredible to me that they could put themselves in a completely different place and actually be expressive about it. It just blows my mind. But to gather that information and be able to do something with it, I think with the Rebels fans, they're a rabid bunch in some ways, but I also think that they tend to be a bit more flexible. At least they have been. Now, Rebels fans are getting a little bit older now. They're going to be more like us, but crotchety and old. But they had to evolve a little bit past what we had in the trilogy, what we had in Clone Wars. Things had to change a little bit. And we remember with Clone Wars, when Clone Wars came out, just the opening title set people off.
Yep.
Just set people off.
That's
when you hear the
Star Wars.
Bum. Yeah, no, none of the typical stuff we had. It just set people in this weird direction. But so I think this is a generation maybe that hopefully remembers some of that stuff and remembers like, okay, yeah, it was a little bit different style. Things changed. The animation was very different. So that we get a different take on some of the characters, even though they did hurt. Hopefully they'll have this openness to them that how they do it isn't wrong, but it might be a little bit different. And we already see the visuals are going to be a little bit different.
Yeah. I want to go to Jeff just real quick in the chat. He said, I'd be lying. Speaking of the hype, he said, I'd be lying if I didn't say my main hype wasn't Kenobi and the Lars family, including Beru. I know the Owen thing is already a meme, but a lot of great, genuine acting can happen with that group. That's a good point.
How much time do you think they'll linger on that aspect of the story then, just to kind of piggyback off that?
To be fair, like if I'm just purely speculating here, I don't know that we're going to get Owen any more than the first episode, personally. Owen
maybe towards the end as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's got to go back. So
maybe a little bit of bookends type of thing.
Maybe the bookends type of thing. I don't know. There is a possibility that he plays a larger role. I think it'd be a shame if they didn't bring him back for more than just the first episode, since he's already wooing the fans with his acting abilities and certainly the the comebacks that he has. But
right.
To me, there's a part of it that says, okay, they're putting him in there because they just want to hit home the fact that he's supposed to be guarding Luke. They're kind of reestablishing all that for the sake of the story. But there is that threat, right? That threat still exists that he's there. And if the Inquisitors are on his tail and Vader's on his tail, then how close do they get? And if they do get close, then it feels like maybe later on or in the middle of the series, maybe there is a return to Tatooine and there's a risk there again. I don't know. That'd be the only way that I think that they would go back to him if it's not going to just be solely Vader and Kenobi. Again, last episode, 2 episodes. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's the slippery slope, right? Is you have to have a reason to get them away from Tatooine, and they have to have no reason to go back there at all, right? I mean, that's where we've really got to get to at the end of the series. And so if where we're at the beginning, if what we've seen in the teasers and the trailer on Tatooine are all early, I'm with you. I think the likelihood that we linger any more than an episode or two on Tatooine and with Owen and Beru, I think the chances of that happening dwindled to almost to nil. And we know that there's no reason for them to leave the planet or get off world at all. And quite honestly, Owen's not that kind of character, I think. And we don't really know as much about Beru. She seems a little bit more open-minded, but we know that Owen's a bit of a stickler in the mud too, right?
Yeah, right.
He'd rather dig his boots in the ground. And again, we've seen him appear somewhat defiant in some of the images that we've seen. And so we'll have to see what happens there with his character and just how far he wants to push some things. But I have a feeling that, Tatooine and the Lars family is probably pretty limited run engagement there.
I'm just sitting here thinking, do you think there's any way the Inquisitors would find out about Luke or that Kenobi is harboring some secret, but Vader would not? Like, is there any reason why they wouldn't tell him that? I mean, their whole mission is just to find Kenobi. But if they did stumble on, he's hiding somebody or something, I mean, the problem is the only way that would work is if they have to go back to the homestead and there's risk. The only way that would work is if Vader didn't know, and I just have a hard time trying to understand why Vader wouldn't be in the know with everything that's going on from the Inquisitor's perspective. That just, I don't know. But,
you could probably logic our way into this, right? Kenobi went to the planet where he thought Anakin or Vader, it was a sentimental thing to him in addition to some of the other things. But also, if he doesn't really know that Vader's alive, Vader presumably does, but where would the last place that Vader think about going to was right. Tatooine, right? So, but again, I think the idea is that Kenobi is going to be always on the move, right? He can't stay in one place. As soon as he's found, he's on the run. He's a wanted man. Anybody that's a Jedi, potentially could get reported, although we don't see that when it comes to A New Hope on Tatooine. But so I think some of those things you got to play into effect. The more you talk about it, probably the easier it is to see that he has no idea that Kenobi is there for a purpose except to hide out.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's the case because I think that helps keep the Luke story nice and clean.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. I think that's likely to be the case, just so we don't have any ambiguity and other things start to creep in. Or, the whole plot hole kind of idea that you just kind of went down of like, it could really open you up to some other things that don't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Jeff was saying that he still feels like there's going to, and I don't disagree.
Absolutely agree. I'm looking forward to these scenes very much with Beru and Owen.
Right. Every time that they're on screen, we're all going to be thinking a million things because we know what's happening.
Oh, and I'd love to see a little bit of Owen and Luke interaction too, right? Or even a Ben and Luke, if you will, if we got to start calling him Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Right.
It's kind of crazy. We haven't called him Ben in so long. And
that's the name.
It's going to be used a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to play a little game with you and anybody that's joined us tonight with the on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, however you're watching the show tonight live. I'm going to throw up a question. I want you guys to answer, but Jonesy, we're going to talk about this question.
All right.
And the question is this: the Obi-Wan Kenobi series will be a success if it.
Oh boy.
And I want you to fill in the blank here. What would, for you at least, like what's your like. Victory criteria or your exit criteria for the show being successful.
Right.
And it could be one thing, it could be multiple things. You don't need to give me a deep answer.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's going to tie into what we were talking about before, but I think if you had to limit it to one sentence, it'll be a success if the Vader and Kenobi confrontation really does pay off and give us the perspective on A New Hope that we've been so desperately wanting for 40 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of things can be forgiven if you get that part, if you get the two main characters of how this is being billed as the face off of the century or the rematch of the century, I think that part has to be right. And if you do, the series is going to largely be considered a success. because people will work in everything else that got us to that moment, right? We'll start to forgive a few things here and there, but I think that's the part that really does have to, it has to work. It has to happen. I mean, it's the most obvious, I know.
Yeah.
But really, I think everything kind of hinges on that moment. But if I were to take a step back, I think is also how I think the interactions between Reva and Obi-Wan are probably going to be just as important by the end of the day.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, so I agree with everything you said. I'm trying to, like, there's probably something else I have as well, but 100% on everything you said. Like, to me, that is the core piece. That is the most pivotal piece. It's got to be something that pays tribute to that original series, and you can't screw that up. Like, I don't think there's a lot of forgiveness here that can happen through the way of the writing and directing. I think the characters are probably safe. Kenobi, Vader, the actors themselves, right? I don't think they're for the most part, at least the main core characters here are coming back in, revisiting roles. So I think that's going to be the same. So what I'm saying is we're not going to run into this thing that we ran into with like Solo, where somebody's being recast and, we're kind of looking at it, that sort of thing. We at least have Kenobi as Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen as established characters. As far as the new characters, Grand Inquisitor aside, because we've already talked about them, I think they're pretty much free to do what they want to. And I don't think there's people going to be going, oh, but in in Fallen Order, this was that, or he looked a little different here. I think there's going to be some nitpicking for that, but I don't think that's going to make or break the series. So by and large, I would say, yes, it is that. But I do feel like this series, because you are taking, this isn't the Holy Trinity in terms of characters. I think it's the Holy Trinity. And if you look at it from the original trilogy perspective, right? You are taking a character that's very well known. We expect a lot of things from that relationship. I think the stakes are very high. And for the same reason, I think this would not be a success. Is I think if they screw that piece up for some way, right? If they recontextualize this in a bad way, or they give us too much, or they make it feel like it's too on the nose, or they start, I don't know, if they've written things for other pieces that we're not even thinking about, other pieces in the script, or other things that are said, or I think that can be a slippery slope as well if it's not done with good tact and not keeping the spirit of what we're expecting here in terms of Kenobi and Vader. So it is dangerous, I guess, is what I'll say from that perspective.
Yeah, so. And I think that's, if we were to probably put the next question up on here about if the Obi-Wan Kenobi series will not be a success. If.
Yeah. Well, hold on before you do that.
Oh, okay.
I want to see what. So Stephanie said if it gives us just enough info to answer questions, but it's still its own story.
I think that's what we want in Star Wars every single time we talk about this. Is a great point.
Yep. Let's see. Anybody else come in? No, I don't think anybody else has chimed in. They're kind of having their own conversation over there.
There's a couple things going on. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not part of it. Oh, here we go. Alex says success equals they really break down in detail moisture evaporators and farming. That's true.
True.
Most people.
Every engineer's dream, right?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so going back to the follow-up question, Kenobi series will not be a success if what's something that would make this unsuccessvel?
I hate to say this because it's going to sound really kind of a cheap shot, but if they fall in the same traps that Book of Boba Fett did, and unfortunately, some of the writing was a little off. Some of the directing had some moments with some certain scenes that just didn't fit the pace that I think would have been really worked for it. And then also, I got to be honest with you, you take a character and they just don't seem to have enough to them, and so they disappear for a couple of episodes, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen here. And again, I'm not being critical. I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett. I was hoping to enjoy it a little bit, more potentially, but I did like it. But I think there were pitfalls with most of the episodes in there, at least for, all but maybe a couple of them, right? That we were really unsure what was happening, and then the direction that they took with it seemed a bit, I don't know, it didn't have that cohesion I think we were hoping for, even though the story was definitely there. It just, the way they presented it to us was just a little bit clunky in some ways, and some of the art direction just wasn't working for me at the very least. So I think, unfortunately, if you fall into that same type of thing, if that becomes the trend, then that's a little bit concerning for where this series would go. Now, I don't I don't have any expectations that's going to be the case this time, because I think also you've got a lot of framework within the character context already between Rebels, but of course between Obi-Wan and Vader and the Lars family. So I think there's a lot of things baked in. You can draw on a lot of that stuff already, where we were trying to recreate a lot of that for Book of Boba Fett. But that's where I kind of go. If it's not going to be successful, if it finds some of those similar traps that Boba Fett and them ran into. And that was a case where we had the same actor returning, different character technically.
Sure.
But it was a little more shakier ground compared to what we've seen with some of the others. And then you've also got to be like, okay, when Anakin is on screen, or if Anakin is on screen, how is that going to work? Because I think if you look at another thing that success or not success depends on, it might be when Anakin is present compared with Vader.
For me, so this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like think about there's gonna be a long-winded answer here, but think about the way
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, I know. But think about all of the content we've gotten post Lucasfilm, right, in the Disney era, with Star Wars Resistance. Okay, for the most part, you've got Filoni coming in, TV series. We don't know any of these characters. It's set in the world of post the Rise or pre-Rise of Skywalker. And so the expectations were different, right? It's a kid show, right? TV kid show. The very light expectations going into that one. But then when you get to things like Rogue One, okay, Rogue One had, I think, at least maybe there was a lot of unknown since it was kind of like the first one to go, right? But I think people still had that same level of, they had some expectations going in because this was a Star Wars movie. These were Star Wars characters, even though we didn't know half of them. But there's a level, there's a bar there. And I think they hit that bar, and it was a full-on success from beginning to end. Then you get into things like Solo. And I think Solo was obviously the first, and I know you like Solo, I like Solo too. I'm not knocking it, but I think there was a bar, and I feel like a lot of people just didn't feel like that bar was hit. Whether it was the writing, the fact they shifted directors. I mean, there's reasons why all this happened. But I think that was being held to a certain standard, and it didn't meet that standard. When you get into like The Mandalorian, again, we don't know anything about this character, so expectations going into it are pretty light. I think everybody agreed that the expectations were pretty light going in. We just got hit with this amazing story, amazing character, and we came out of that. And even somebody like Boba Fett, I don't feel like the expectations were that high for Boba Fett, because we didn't have, I mean, for the most part, most people only knew him from the movies. We had seen him in, Clone Wars. And we, of course, had a bunch of legend stuff if you were following that in our heads. But for the most part, I feel like he was kind of an open playing field. Like they could do some certain things, take some risks. And maybe that's some of the stuff that you're speaking to. Some of those risks that they took, or some of the things that just didn't live up to that bar. I think they went in and said, well, let's just give it a shot. It's just Boba Fett. I hate to say that, but it's true. What I'm getting at is with the Kenobi series, I don't think you have that. I don't think you can really play outside the box. I think you have to hit that bar. I think the expectations are going to be there for this series as though it were a movie, especially when you've got like Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen coming back, right? You've got two core people. You're expecting them to deliver that same story. And I have a feeling like it's just that bar of whether or not it's successful is so finicky because the expectations are so high, given that, these are not like the Boba Fetts. This isn't a new character like Mando or a new group of characters like Resistance. We know who they are. We know what they've said. We know what's going to happen to them. So again, it's really just about those expectations, I think. And I think if they don't meet those, I think it's going to be, I feel people will consider it to not be a success.
I think,
I know what this looks like. I don't know. You have to get there. I can't really explain it, right? I think that's what we're saying to these folks is we know exactly what we want and what we need to see, but you're going to have to figure out how to get there because you should know that.
Yeah, I think there's another component. I think there's another component for the actors as well. And I think that's because like for Kenobi or for Hayden and Ewan as well, because we were able to pin a lot of problems with what they put on screen on George Lucas's writing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There was a lot of criticism of Lucas's writing, I think rightfully so. And it created characters that were thought to be somewhat wooden, despite the acting chops that we know that they have. Now this is kind of this redemption time, right? Of okay, we got different writers. If the writers can deliver the right script and the right tone, do the actors actually make it work? Right. And so far we're seeing absolutely. We see Ewan McGregor hitting it. We see Joel Edgerton hitting it. We've seen it from the other actors so far, Moses Ingram. So all signs are pointing that, that it's working this time. And then we're going to get to Hayden Christensen and say, okay, is that going to work as well? Because Hayden took a lot of, flack. Mm-hmm. Some of it, but a lot of it was really not great writing. I mean, Natalie Portman got a lot of flack too, and we know that we know that she's an award caliber talent every single time she goes on screen. And so it's you could take the best and still not make it look good. So I think that's another layer of pressure on the actors themselves to drop some of that dead weight, that old baggage that they've got, with some fans, because they will be brutal if some of these things surface again. I think that's not to put a whole blanket on the whole thing, but that was something that popped in my head the last couple of days. It's just that, if the writing is there, but the acting is not, then that's a whole nother thing. I'm not ready to go through that. So I'm hoping that doesn't,
Yeah, I know. You're saying
I don't want to go back through Attack of the Clones stuff again. Yeah. Cause that was just a really hard time for the actors as well as Star Wars in general. I think there were a lot of things, difficult times back then, and in some ways.
Yeah, and that vocal minority, I keep well track of them. My pulse is on that stuff like you wouldn't believe.
I know, yeah.
But man, they are all over this already. Like they are dooming this series, and it hasn't even started. Everything from what Rupert Friend had said to what Deborah Chow was saying. She's saying that it was more in line with like the Joker and stuff. And they've taken that and they've spun up these 1 hour YouTube videos and rants and raves about how this is why it's going to fail because of that. I mean, they look for this stuff and they zone in on it and they, dramatize it and so much. It's just so crazy, but to me, they're already on down that path. And so, right, any misstep is going to give that vote. And I keep saying they are the vocal minority. We give them a voice because we talk about them like I'm doing right now. But for the most part, I don't think people don't live their lives like that, unfortunately. So they just have a lot of time to do that. Okay, so
well, I got to say this though. Stephanie put a comment out there, and I have to agree with this 100%. This series will suck if they mess up Obi-Wan Kenobi's beard again.
That's your redemption story. I know you're looking for an Obi-Wan beard.
I am. I mean, we kind of got it in Revenge of the Sith already.
Yeah.
But we will not revisit that. We will not revisit that again. Dark times indeed, my friend.
That was Jonesy's personal dark times.
We are drawing. I didn't even have, like I said, I didn't even have a beard back then, I don't think. But
no, you didn't. I've seen your pictures.
I may have had like a goatee or something. Yeah. Whatever was popular back in the olden days.
Yep. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece. Let's play the cameo. I'll call this cameo.
Oh, the cameo game. Yeah.
Or we'll call it walk-ons, however you want. I mean, there is a difference between a cameo and somebody that most people get cameo wrong. Cameo is like a one-line background. Yeah. That's what that means, right? If they're in the episode and they're an established character, that's not technically a cameo. We don't get into all that. But what the question that I've posed is, do we see and or hear, and there's a reason why I said this, do we see and or hear from any of the following characters, and if so, how? Okay? So the first one, and I've got everybody. I've got everybody on here, by the way. It's like the
I know you do. It's a long list.
But let's just go through these quickly. Luke. Are we going to any chance?
We definitely see him.
Right.
And
how much do we see of him though?
Oh, not much. And I think we do hear him. And again, I would really like to see him and Owen, I think more specifically than maybe with Beru, but I would like to see him and Owen having some sort of interaction. I'd love to see it with Obi-Wan Kenobi as well, but I just don't know if that's going to be the case or not. But yeah, I think we'll hear him speak to one or the other. But again, I think we're thinking, talking 5 minutes or less screen time total. What about you?
Yeah. And for this one, it is really about do we hear him? We already saw him. We know he's there. So that's not, but I had posted on Twitter earlier this week that my wishful thinking is that this series opens up with inside the homestead of the Owen, of the Lars family. And, the camera's following right behind, over the shoulder kind of view of Luke just being a rambunctious little boy, running through stuff, jumping on stuff. He's got a little T-16 that he's flying through the air. Whatever.
Does he say yippee?
No.
Oh.
And then that eventually, leads us out. He runs outside, and then, we have this one moment where he just kind of looks briefly up at the suns and smiles, or he gets caught thinking. And the next thing you know, he jumps on that the end of the hut there, and that's kind of where we see Kenobi watching him and smiling because he's just got he's seeing Luke looking up into the stars and playing and all that.
Steven, I would love for him to get saved by Ben from like Tuskens or something like that. That he gets himself into a predicament.
Well, and I think that's possible. I think that's possible. We'll come back to that though, because that line of Ben is a great man, right?
Right.
I mean, okay, more on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that could be the idealism of a 19-year-old too.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, everything was awesome or horrible at 19.
Right.
What about Yoda? Do you think we'll hear or see Yoda in the series?
No see, but I think here is a decent probability on that one.
Okay.
Do I have to definitively say yes or no? Or is it just there's a chance?
You're going on record. I'm already taking notes. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, because I'm a scale person.
Right.
I think 50-50 on Yoda's voice. I think it makes sense, and it may be better than 50%. I think for him to, in order to commune with Yoda in some kind of way, would make sense. I also see why it would not make sense though, because they're trying to dampen their force presence and not be a beacon for whatever's going on in the galaxy.
And I'm with you. I think we do hear Yoda. I don't think we're going to see him, and I don't think we have to. It wouldn't make sense. That would, there'd have to be some kind of way that they're communicating, and I don't think that's happening with him on Dagobah, and I think that's way too risky. But through the Force,
it could be a recollection too of what Yoda said to Obi-Wan as they were departing Revenge of the Sith, right? Him recalling what his lesson was going to be while he was in exile.
Yes. No, you're right. I don't know if I wouldn't say I don't like that, but I want to see, if I'm going to get a Yoda, if I'm going to hear Yoda, I would much prefer him to be talking to Kenobi.
Give some new dialogue here.
Yeah. And it would set up Empire, right? With, here's where you need to go, seek Yoda, Dagobah system, go to Dagobah, there you'll find Yoda. He's got to know all of that stuff, and presumably they had a conversation about what to expect, even though it doesn't sound like he was ready for him, but that's a comic book thing. So rather than him recalling famous lines or quotes from Yoda, but I'm fine either way. Right. Okay, so here's a big one that I know a lot of people have been talking about, a lot of speculation this week on it, but Qui-Gon Jinn. Any chance that we're going to see Qui-Gon Jinn? Well, that's the big one. Are we going to visually see him, or is it just a
voice?
Yeah, a voice.
I think no see
voice is what I was looking.
Yeah, no see. But man, if it wasn't for Liam Neeson saying that he would love to return to Star Wars, but only in a film, I would say that this had about the same probability as a Yoda as being heard. Again, I don't know that we should see Qui-Gon unless they're in a very special nexus type of point, because we know he didn't finish the training.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would like for that to still be a thing where I know we saw him in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But again, that was that was a completely different set of circumstances.
Extraordinary circumstances at that.
Right. Yep. But I would really love, man. I think, if I had to pick one over the other, Qui-Gon or Yoda, I would love for it to be Qui-Gon Jinn. I would just love for it to be him over Yoda. But I think there's about the same chance, or there would have been, but Liam Neeson's comments kind of slashed my hopes on that one.
Well, and I'm going to say, like, I'm with you. I think I'm with you, but maybe to the extreme, because, I love drama, but I think we're going to see Obi-Wan Qui-Gon Jinn.
I would love to see that conflict between them about the chosen one too.
I don't think we'll get into that.
I know, but it would be nice.
But that would be cool.
Chip on Obi-Wan's shoulder of sorts.
Yeah. There's a conversation to be had there.
Some baggage.
Yeah, that will be had. But I think it's going to be both. I think we're going to get the disembodied voice of Qui-Gon Jinn probably earlier on in the episode, but I'd love to see that at the very end. Have them show Liam Neeson. And the only reason that I'm leaning toward that is exactly what you said. This just keeps coming up over and over again about how Liam Neeson keeps saying, he doesn't really do TVs, he does movies. I think he's lent his voice graciously for a number of things because it's just who he is. He usually holds on to those characters and loves them, kind of like Keanu Reeves does. But given the opportunity, I can't see him passing up, not getting his face on TV. Not, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's something about it. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I just really feel like in my heart of hearts, I think they're going to show him, because the way they could explain this is, in from a certain point of view, he was still a disembodied voice, but maybe by the time the series is over, he's gotten through all that, or he's developed that ability, or there's something that sparks that, or I don't know. I just have a feeling he's going to show up.
It's a good question whether you can finish the training when you're dead.
Yeah.
That's not a question we have the answer to, yeah.
Not yet. Okay, well, I think we're both in agreement that we definitely will hear him, but whether or not we see him, to be determined.
Okay, next one is for you to start with. Breha or Bail Organa?
I think, well, my theory is that Leia is the one that's been, ever since, even we talked about this almost a year ago, I think. I was trying to go back and look for that episode, that I threw that out there, that because we were going through the whole down the thought process of why in the heck would he leave Tatooine? And we said at the time it had to be something would have to pull him off the planet in some way, and it would have to be something pretty substantial for him to leave the Chosen One like that, or him to feel like the Chosen One was completely safe. And I don't think that's going to come from the protection of Owen Lars and Aunt Beru, but and then we went down the path of, well, what could it be? It's got to be somebody famous or somebody that's in peril, and I think we naturally led into Leia being a prisoner of some sort, or being kidnapped in some way. So on that reason alone, I think I'm going to stick to my theory, but I'm going to say yes, that we are going to see Kenobi. I don't know of many people that would.
You mean
I don't know.
Bail?
Sorry. I was thinking about, I don't know that Kenobi is going to leave on his own. Someone has to go to him and say, we need you to leave. And if there's very few people, if not just one or two, that actually know where he's at. So, so Bail, I think, is a given. Breha is the other one that I don't, without Leia, there is no Breha, in my opinion.
Right.
So what about you?
Yeah. I mean, Bail Organa makes sense because, again, we know that he's part of this resistance type of movement. They're doing stuff that's forming the rebellion. I think it makes sense for him to be there if there's some sort of call to action. If we need a call to action, Bail Organa makes a lot more sense. I'm still going to go on I'll be contrary and just say no. Well, I'll take this back. And if he is there, the chances of Leia showing up go up astronomically.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because there's no reason for Leia to be there if one of the Organas isn't there. And unfortunately, I think it's more Bail than Breha because he's the senator. He's the more front and center person that we have from the prequels, I think. And he's also been more present in all of the rebellion stuff that we've got in subsequent content as well.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that Breha is not important. I think Bail's just been more front and center with all of that. You're not going to linger on these characters for very long. In all likelihood, if they were to come in, it would just be one or two. But again, the thing that we're seeing, though, I mean, some of the chase scenes or who are they going after? It seems like the Inquisitors are already on Tatooine for some reason. So why would Kenobi, leave for some other purpose if they were there before that? So I think that's kind of the part where I have a little bit of a question about whether or not that's an actual possible storyline that they take on that one. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely on the realm of possibility, though. I think it really could be there. And if like I said, if Bail's there, I'm pretty much going to start going 95% that Leia's going to be there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would agree too with Leia. She was on this list, but I think that's the only way she shows up as well. Okay. Anakin Skywalker's face. Gotta be very specific on this one.
Okay. Yeah. And well, does a cracked mask or that type of thing count as well?
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is there a moment in here where his mask is exposed, or he even takes it off for whatever reason, and we get to see Hayden Christensen speaking as Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker?
I was about to say, yeah, because we'll definitely see him in his bacta tank. I think we have a pretty good idea of that one. Yeah, I think it doesn't work if you don't, right? I think that's part of one of the things to make sure it's a success is you actually see Hayden's expressions of what his reaction is to Obi-Wan. And I think that's a very important dynamic of it, rather than just be a flashback type of scenario where we see Anakin. No, we want to see Vader with the mask broken or off. Not we don't want to see Anakin because Anakin's no longer there, right?
Right.
It's Vader, right? So we want to see Vader unmasked. And I think the probability is very, very high on this one. If they didn't do it, again, it's the whole point of like, well, why'd you bother bringing Hayden Christensen in?
Yeah.
You know, so I think this is almost a given.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I definitely think we're going to, well, I should say, I hope that we're going to see Hayden Christensen's face as Darth Vader. And I think if they do that, I think it would be an interesting, I'll call it juxtaposition of the way he is when he sees Ahsoka in Rebels versus the way he would look at Kenobi in this series. In Rebels, he almost pleads to her as Anakin Skywalker. And I would love for him to, that person doesn't even exist. Like at this point, he is 100% Darth Vader. And if that mask is off, he's talking to Kenobi as Darth Vader and not Anakin Skywalker. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. I don't think there's any.
And Ahsoka and Obi-Wan are completely different people to Vader, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
exactly,
the hatred he has for Kenobi is night and day with Ahsoka. At least there was some positive attachment, with Ahsoka. But yeah, you're right. With Kenobi, there should be literally probably nothing but hate and very little conflict within him as to what he wants to do with Kenobi.
Yeah. On that same note, and Ken brought it up, but flashbacks, and we talked about this the last episode, or the last time we talked about the series, and whether or not we would get any flashbacks. Let me just ask that question in general. I think I have it on here somewhere. Oh, we'll come back to that in a little bit. It is on here. It's a little bit later, though, so sorry.
Yeah, we have a long list. We need to crank through these here.
No, I'm not going anywhere. Where are you going? Okay. All right, so here's a wishful one on my part. Satine.
No.
No.
And I was actually thinking about, does it even make sense for her to come up at all? And I just can't think of it. I can't think of a scenario where it makes sense for that to come up.
I mean, I can get there.
You don't have to work real hard to get there. I get that, but there's a lot of other things they're going to be focusing on. And I think, again, when I think about the practical aspects of storytelling, and kind of go back to what Utini brought up in the Q&A a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
The practical aspect of it, of what purpose does having Satine even mentioned, where many people are not going to have any idea who that is, or that Obi-Wan had a love interest at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what purpose does that serve in it, except maybe for a life of regret. And we've gotten some of this in some of the books lately, but overall, I would think there's very, very little chance of this. But it would be great, but not likely. Yeah. Actually, she's dead. So there's no new story with Satine here, right?
No.
She's very dead.
This would be a flashback. This would be a flashback or a recreation of her death.
No. Obi-Wan comic, I think might have something like that, but I don't know about this one.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
No. As much as I want to. No. What about Padme?
Oh, man. I'm going to say no, because I would be very surprised if Natalie Portman had any interest in voicing this character in any kind of way. I just don't think it's there for her as the actress. Again, more practical side of things.
I mean, she's coming back. I mean, she's starring in the next Thor movie. For a character.
Yeah, she had a lot of similar comments about the Thor movie. She was pretty not happy with them either, but
yeah. Money talks, man.
Well, she's been really busy with all that too, so I don't know. I don't know. What about you? Do you think Padme?
Well, again,
she definitely. I think she gets spoken about. Absolutely, I think she's brought up.
I think that's one of his. I think that's Kenobi's in his armament. Right? He's going to use her, evoke the feelings of her, try to get through to him. I think he's going to use that. Right?
Yeah.
So I think her name will be spoken and uttered at some point during that confrontation. As far as whether or not we see her, I mean, of course, it would have to be a flashback, and the only way I would say that would happen is if if we get like a Boba Fett in the tank kind of moment where Vader's, getting assembled or whatever, and he's just having flashes of imageries or whatever.
Or if he's just hanging in the tank, meditating.
Exactly, and he's thinking about the time they spent and some of the memories from Clone War, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge
all the
of
back just starts to boil from the heat or from the anger and the heat. Yeah.
Exactly. So that would be the only way I would see. I would expect that to happen.
All right. What about Maul?
No, I think Maul's out of this one. I know. Think so I think a lot of people want him to be in it because
it's just too much baggage. It's just too much to bring into it. I think.
Well, yes. I think it complicates the story. It adds layers that don't need to be there. But I think where people are still holding on to this, still holding on. Where people are still holding on is the fact that Maul was, allegedly going to be in one of the in the movie at one point, or maybe even early on in the TV series before they kind of took a different route. And I think that's people are still kind of thinking, well, that'd be kind of cool. But his story is already is told elsewhere, and later on in Rebels. So,
well, I think how they did in Rebels was really powerful, that they not know each other were alive.
Yeah.
Until that point. Because I think that made it all the more special.
Yeah, and if you watch that episode, like was it called Twin Sons? That would make a whole lot of sense. If we saw Maul where he is in that moment at the beginning of Twin Sons episode, this wouldn't make sense that he would even pop up in here. Like
exactly,
it doesn't jive.
All right, what about Kira then? We'll just go through all the solo Star Wars story characters.
Nope. Next. Did you put this one in there, or did I put this one in here, this next one? Is that me?
You did, not me.
That's stupid. Why did I put that in there?
I don't know. I don't question your genius, though.
We'll skip it. Let's go to the next one. No, I'm kidding, because that'll tease everybody. Mace Windu.
Oh, I thought Ahsoka was next on the list.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, because I added in her a little bit later. Sorry. I had Mace Windu on here, but no. Let's talk about Mace. All right. Now let's talk about Ahsoka.
Oh, she's a no, too. This is easy.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think, her again.
No reason to.
Different path.
Yeah. And again, you really start to divert the story.
Okay, so let's talk about the droids, the bounty hunters, because I had IG-11 on here, but I mean, pick any of them. Do you think we're going to have any of the bounty hunters that we're familiar with from the movies, not necessarily the comics, but from the movies?
That's a good question. Again, I think they might fall into more cameo. I think if you talk about the Bobas or the Bosks or those types of, maybe like a Zuckuss or something that's less popular or less known, to the general public, but they might recognize them, but they don't know their name. I think those might be more likely. And again, if we do get a Q9, I think that would be a great kind of appearance and tie into other material that would satisfy the general bounty hunters thing. But I mean, again, we know that they're doing bounty hunters. So, do you get oh God, do I even dare bring his name into this? Who's your most hated bounty hunter that you hate with a passion? Everybody should hate, because he's a jackass.
Oh, you're talking about Bandage Boy, the Mummy.
Dengar.
Dengar, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's not in this. I hope
this guys, I'm around.
Oh, no. Jeez, what a loser that guy is.
Yeah, but I mean, like the big boys, like, Cad Bane or Aura Singh would be kind of cool. That would be a nice throwback to Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, who else is there that makes a lot of sense? Not Cad Bane,
Yeah.
Again, it takes the story completely different place.
Yeah, and I apologize. I said IG-11, and I was thinking IG-88. IG-11 is what I'm talking about, so that would be a way to tie into...
No, you said IG-11.
Oh, did I? Okay, I thought I missed it. No,
IG-88's another option, though, right?
Sure, why not?
Probably more applicable in this era, maybe, than IG-11 yet, but we don't know that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't see him. Even like Cad Bane, again, it'd be cool, but he's, how much time are you going to give him then? And that doesn't seem fair, especially now that he's been front and center in the Boba Fett series.
Yeah, he had 2 episodes effectively, better part of 2 episodes. So, I think some background characters maybe on bounty hunters, but man, really only 1 or 2 that we might recognize. I'm trying to think if we left any other obvious ones out.
Oh, I got more.
Okay.
Saw Gerrera. What about Saw Gerrera?
Well, he's not a bounty hunter.
No. Oh, you're talking about bounty hunters. Sorry, this is just characters in general.
Oh, no, I was talking about bounty hunters, yeah.
Now I'm done talking about bounty hunters. I don't know that we're going to see. I think, like you said, there'll be cameos at best. I don't know that we're going to have any, like, hey, look, it's me. And here, your action figure is validated. But go on. What else? So Saw Gerrera.
Oh, Saw Gerrera. Yeah, and the next one you have is Bo Gullet. Bo Gullet, tell the truth.
That was a joke, but maybe
no, I love it, though, because I love that line.
For the line only, right?
Right. No, but I'm going to lump them together because I think they're both going to be in Andor.
Yeah.
And so nothing here, but Andor, I'm all in. Give me a Bo Gullet.
What about O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s role, though? Like, O'Shea Jackson Jr., Simon Kessel, Benny Safdie, Maya Erskine, Rory Ross. There's a ton of characters or actors that have not, their roles have never been mentioned. And so when I see that, it tells me there's going to be a surprise. I don't know how you tie this into somebody like Saw Gerrera or the Partisans in any way. So I don't want to, I don't want to,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I could get there, but that's not what the point of the show is. But I don't know.
I don't know. And again, are they just being listed, but they're Imperial officers or hidden behind a stormtrooper
Yeah.
helmet? I mean, usually they're not credited, so that's a little bit different. But yeah, I don't know.
I think it changes the political dynamics too. Like knowing that, I always, especially from Rebel Rising, it did seem like, yes, they were Bail was behind them and supporting them in some way. But then, at some point he starts breaking off and starts getting a little too radical. I mean, he's just killing people left and right for no reason.
And again, this isn't necessarily a story of rebellion.
Yeah.
And this is and I think this is where Deborah Chow's comments about Joker, what was the other one she had mentioned? It was another more character kind of driven story.
Yeah, there was another one I just couldn't recall when I was.
Yeah, it's escaping me. A big movie. But again, it's more character driven. It's more intimate in that regard. And so again, I think while the galaxy is big, I think we're going to narrow this down a bit here. And it's not the story of rebellion, it's the story of survival and of, relationships and the breaking of those bonds.
Okay, so let's move in. Let's roll into the final group here. I know you had one I think you were going to add.
Yeah, I've got a secret one. Yeah.
Palpatine, Krennic, Tarkin. Any of the bad boys in the Empire on the Imperial side.
So Krennic doesn't make any sense because I think, again, it's more along the lines of the other thing. Tarkin and Palpatine are interesting, though. Tarkin, to me, seems to make less sense than Palpatine because I could see where, and this is a kind of true cameo type of thing or a one-liner where Vader has to commune with Palpatine about the potential of Kenobi, and Palpatine tells him to go after him. Or has the line that, this could be a severe threat to our plans. It's kind of like what he did in the comic books a bit. So I think that one would be interesting. But, and I got to say this, though, Ian McDiarmid has made comments that he is appearing in something or to that effect. So is it this or is it something else? I don't know.
I don't know either. I didn't realize he even made those comments. Now he got me wondering, like, where the hell?
Well, he hasn't. Well, he keeps hinting in a very sly, non-committal.
Yeah.
You have really, he wants to tell you something, but he just won't. Yeah, so I don't know. It's
keep us guessing.
Yeah. All right. So what about you on that trifecta there?
I think Palpatine would be the most likely. I don't see Krennic happening. I don't see Tarkin. Like that to me seems, he's so into the day-to-day operational work.
Well, I mean, Tarkin and Vader do have a lot of interaction throughout their career over this time period, though, too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Krennic as well. I mean, Krennic from the comic books at least. I mean, he had a what do you call it, a direct line to him. I mean, we know he went and visited him personally, even though that was kind of stupid of him to do in Rogue One. So he did have a relationship as well. I just don't know that this story is going to. This seems really more about taking care of the Jedi, and at least from like the way Tarkin was in the movies, it felt like that wasn't. That's Vader's thing, right? He's doing all the extinguishing of the Jedi and all that Force stuff. I need to focus on blowing up worlds, So how that gets into Tarkin's space, I just don't know. But like you said, with Palpatine though, checking in with him, what is I bidding my master? Maybe we get a scene like that where he's checking in and giving him an update. I do wonder though with Palpatine if he's going to feel like similar to what his the way he felt about Vader going after Luke, and that became very personal and felt like he was getting a little too personal, like he was becoming obsessed and kind of breaking away. If Kenobi was to tell him that, would he feel the same way? And whether or not Palpatine would warn him or caution him, but the more I think about it now, I'm thinking no, probably not. He would probably just say go kill the bastard, right? I don't think.
Right, and I think that's the thing. I think they're two different playing fields. I think Palpatine understood the threat of Luke Skywalker and the weakness that would expose in Anakin.
Right,
that being how Anakin. Exist. Right, I mean everything just he leads with his heart, and that's the last thing Palpatine wants to come back. I think with Kenobi, how he was left, I think Palpatine would probably be like, good, and just, go get him, but don't fail. And I think his, we're expecting his failure here, right?
Yeah.
In some capacity. And if that does happen, then that would be something else that the Emperor could punish him for in some way.
Yeah. Okay, well that's the end of my exhaustive list.
Okay.
But I know
So I got one more to throw out there for
All
you.
right,
Then
go ahead, give it to me.
what about Chewbacca? So in A New Hope, when it's difficult to tell if, and I haven't read the novelization forever to see if this is actually explained, but it appears that they might know each other, or maybe he's being introduced to Chewbacca, him being Obi-Wan. But it would be interesting if they've met before, because we know that Chewbacca has been involved with Yoda and, in Revenge of the Sith and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be kind of cool though if they already knew each other, and when he tells him, Chewbacca here, is a co-pilot or what did he call him? I don't know, whatever, on the Falcon. But anyway, it would be just great if there was a pre-existing relationship there. And I know that probably doesn't really work for Chewbacca's history, because we know that he was enslaved by the Empire. I don't remember the timelines of all of that, or if it's even all that clear anymore. I think that would be kind of cool though, if that was a place where he still traveled through doing whatever Chewbacca did before in the Han Solo days.
It would be cool, but like, what? Yeah, bringing Chewbacca in though. How do we?
Well, I think again, more cameo type of thing in the background,
Okay. No, I get you.
or something.
No, I like the idea. I would say I'd give it a 5%.
Okay, I'm going to give it 20. But yeah, I'm optimistic. But that would be a fun one though. But that would be a fun one you wouldn't expect, right?
No,
It'd be
it would not
neat.
be that one. I was going to say, oh my, how the tables have turned. You're being the optimistic one here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. Shut up. Okay. The next question was really about cameo appearances and minor roles. I don't know. We've kind of beat that dead horse.
Kind of covered that one, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody that's a long shot though, besides Chewbacca? No, I'm kidding. Anybody that you look at a super long shot? Anyone that's a really long shot for you?
Oh man, that's tough. Well, I mean, we've said some pretty long shot ones already. The
Yeah,
ones that
that's
have,
true.
like,
We have.
you can't get any longer than 0%, right? But again, anybody that would maybe matter, I think a long shot would be someone like Ahsoka, or maybe even Akira, or a Windu. God, could we just let the guy die in peace?
No, I'm going to say Windu is going to be a guest or cameo on every series in Star Wars until he actually has his formal series announced.
It would make a lot more sense if he had one of those spinning lightsabers that he could have used to help him escape unscathed from his previous meeting with Palpatine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
right.
I think we kind of touched on the long shots there. Sadly, I think Qui-Gon's probably a bit more of a long shot, but you and I are playing with our hearts here of what we desperately want and think would actually serve the story really well at the same time.
Yeah. What about flashbacks? So let's move on to flashbacks and just in general. I mean, we've already talked about them. I think we've speculated on how it could work to bring back some of these characters as cameos, how it could actually help enhance some of the storyline and get us to understand what's going through the minds of the characters and how they're feeling at this point in their times. But how do you feel about that? Because it feels like, we flash back to when, Mandalorian came out. And I remember covering that specifically with Rondo, and I'm not calling him out, but Rondo had a good point. Star Wars doesn't do flashbacks. Like, that's what he said, right? Star Wars never does flashbacks. It was different. And it feels like at least now it is the norm, right? We've gotten flashbacks now in the last two series. It still hasn't happened in some of the other stuff, but I don't think it's fair at this point anymore to say that flashbacks aren't part of what makes Star Wars Star Wars. So that said, it almost feels like the trend is they are doing flashbacks. Do you think we're going to have flashbacks in Kenobi? And if so, is it going to be some of the stuff that we're talking about, or the things that, is it going to flash back to, a scene from Brotherhood in some way?
I think with Vader, the flashbacks seem very real because he would be plagued by nightmares and dreams and all of the things that have happened before, especially once he starts getting obsessed with something again. I think that would make a lot of sense. I think some of that might be more replaying what happened in Revenge of the Sith, though, both with Padme as well as with Obi-Wan. But I think another character that might make some sense, though, would be Reva. And I would really like to see Reva have more of that, because we've got the backstory on Obi-Wan. We've got the backstory on Vader / Anakin. We've got a bit of the backstory on Luke and Owen and Beru. So who's really left is the characters that we don't know anything about that you would really want to fill that in. Now, Obi-Wan does have 10 years, right, of stuff to fill in. But again, what actually has that dramatic input where that flashback would actually mean something? And it seems like a lot of those things we already know. So will they rehash flashbacks? I would think we'll get a tiny bit of that, but it makes more sense with Vader, I think. Well, I take that back. It might make sense with Obi-Wan if he's dreaming about his interactions with Vader, or how he left Anakin, rather.
Yeah.
But I think also with Reva, it makes a lot more sense, because as a character we have zero information about. She presumably is going to play a fairly major role in the series. So where did she come from? And we talked about this a couple of different times already in previous episodes, where, how was she left at the temple? Was she there? Was she saved by someone? Was she abandoned? What drove her to join the Inquisitors? Did she have a choice? So there's a lot of questions there. And backstory can fill a lot of that in when you don't have a lot of time for monologue and dialogue between characters one-on-one to really personalize that information and to be able to get it out and have it mean something.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen and that's what we've seen more often in Star Wars these days. I think it helps, and it's helped bridge some of that for us to not have to spend a lot of time with storytelling, but we can do chunks of that or little pieces of that over a few different episodes and get the information we want.
Right. And to be fair, the context of what he was saying that is Lucas never did flashbacks, and so therefore,
sure,
by definition, Star Wars doesn't do flashbacks, because Star Wars is Lucas, right?
Hadn't done flashbacks, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I think with
Although
Disney, though...
yeah. Although I'd argue that there were a bit of flashbacks, but that might be Clone Wars more.
Yeah, Clone Wars for sure.
So I would count.
Yeah, I would say yes. That we're going to get flashbacks. I'm for them for all the good reasons that you mentioned. It does give us an opportunity to get some of that backstory quickly and get us vested in some of these characters without having to trudge through. We don't have 24 episodes, right? We don't have a full season for them to tell, just to show us those stories. So through the use of flashbacks, we can get caught up and feel like, connect with those characters in that way. I think everything's on the table, though. I think it'd be very interesting. So far it's been all flashbacks from a certain lens for the most part. Well, no, we had what's his face's flashbacks as well. What's his name? Kuril's flashbacks. Yeah,
more of his recalling of previous live.
Yeah. So that's happened already too. So something along those lines would be kind of cool, where we have flashbacks on maybe one episode from Kenobi, like you said, where he's thinking about that moment and all that. Anakin, the lightsaber scene, fine. I think that's probably a given. Or some of the events that happened in Revenge of the Sith. I'd love for that to be more of his relationship with Padme, and still having harboring feelings and still feeling like there's severe loss there. But by and large, I think if we're gonna get him, I think the most impactful for me is going to be somebody like Reva. Because like we were speculating last week about how, was she abandoned? What happened during Order 66? Being able to see that and give us a reason as to why she hates Kenobi, or why she hates the Jedi so much that she was willingly or unwillingly converted into a Sith Inquisitor. I think that would be meaningful. And I don't know how you do that without flashbacks, right?
Very much like what we had with Grogu. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, otherwise she's doing like long soliloquies and talking about all of this stuff on screen. I just don't think that's...
Well, she is a villain. All villains must monologue.
Oh, very true. Yeah.
I think when you think about what Anakin or Obi-Wan might have, you don't have to have visual flashbacks. You can have more audible while you focus on that character. I think this is where it makes more sense to... You see the visual of Vader in his bacta tank, and you hear all of the scenes that we're so familiar with. But you see the reactions it has from him. I think those types of recollections, maybe less so than a flashback, but recollections seem almost a guarantee to have some amount of that. But true flashbacks, yeah, I'm with you. I think Reva is where it makes the most sense, but also really can help her character come out because she doesn't have a reason to tell anybody her past.
Right. What do they care? So Alex asked the question. He says, when does Kenobi find out Anakin lived?
I think this series.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually a good question. I was thinking about that too today. Like, I don't.
Oh, don't inflate his ego.
No,
Alex doesn't need any help.
He doesn't need help. But no, seriously. So this is the first time that I think he is going to see what's become of Anakin Skywalker. A part of me tells me living on Tatooine, you're really not in the know, right? Unless you're out there actively looking for it and seeking it, jumping around, flying through space, and coming back home to Tatooine.
Kenobi presumably has completely disconnected from all of that stuff intentionally, right?
And from the Force, right? There's a good possibility he's disconnected himself from the Force as well.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I don't even know that he may have inklings that Anakin has survived. I don't think he does. I think when he does see them or does see him, maybe it's Reva that tells him. And that's why she says he's coming for you, right? And not trying to scare him and thinking like, holy crap, Anakin lived and he's this monster that she just described to me. And he's now hunting me down kind of thing. But I think that's going to be the first time that he sees him. And I'm really looking forward to that scene when he sees Vader and Anakin and what's become of Anakin. Right, that harks back to he's more machine than man. And you look at the way Alec Guinness played that part, and he's kind of thinking about it, like he's conjuring up images of it when that happens. So,
Alex just spoiled it. He saw it on TMZ.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
Yeah, but if anybody's seen the TV spots that have been coming out of the other countries lately, or the little extra scenes here and there, there's some stuff with Kenobi doing a little bit of hand wringing and where we see him looking up at the very end of the trailer when the breath starts. So there's...
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh.
That would be cool.
It's not spoiler, and literally there's a little glimpse of the same scene, just different perspectives on it. So I know for people who are trying to avoid spoilers at this point, stay off Twitter because they are all over the place.
Or don't watch
or Reddit
spots.
Or anywhere else. Yeah.
Okay. This is a quick one. I know we've gotten it from the last two series, but concept art credits, is that a good one?
I hope so. I love them.
Me too. I would
Give me all the concept art.
Okay, last questions here. And we've already probably done this one, but I called this, what is your Razor Crest prediction?
Was that who's going to die?
No, this was the, it wasn't the death one. I think, I guess we could phrase it like that. Who's going to die? But this was just the question of like, that was such a Hail Mary prediction for me that there was no way I should have gotten that right, but we did, right? And so like, what is the one thing out there that it just seems like it's just so far out there, but it's possible and it's got a 1% chance and you're going to be screaming from the rooftops that if it does happen, turns out to be true.
Oh, you mean like in a positive way? Because my mind went straight to negatives.
Yeah.
So
positive. This is a positive show, Jonesy. What do you?
Well, no, it would have been like Obi-Wan doesn't actually win the fight with Vader. He actually loses, but gets lucky because he did something. We kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago. Where he has to look into Vader's psyche to figure out where his weakness is in order to beat him. But it's really more of a gimmick than actually Obi-Wan beating Darth Vader. I think that would be one of those things and maybe that belonged earlier in the show, but it just kind of came to me. I don't really do big predictions like that. I'm not very good at this type of thing. So you tell me yours first, and then I'll come up with one.
Well, I've already told mine. I think mine for
the Razor Crest is going to show up.
Yes, and it's going to blow up again. This is the second Razor Crest you see in Mando.
Right.
No, this I'm going to go back to the Qui-Gon Jinn. Seeing Qui-Gon Jinn physically, right, the full form. I think that would be a like whoa kind of moment.
That would be a holy
yeah, exactly. Type moment. So that's about as big because I just don't know that they're going to they can't it's like I said earlier, like there's certain things they can do, but I don't know if they're going to really get out there and tell these really bold kind of stories. I think we kind of know what's coming, and that's not a bad thing. So I don't know that we're going to get some big bold prediction like that or something happening where like the Razor Crest just blows up.
Yeah, and I remember when Luke showed up in Mandalorian, I had my arms raised as soon as I saw the lightsaber, right? Or and he actually appeared on screen in any kind of form. And I think Yoda probably has the same type of impact as Qui-Gon does, right? Because it's just a character we want to see back on screen. interacting with Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi of this era.
Yeah.
And so Qui-Gon is feels like such a long shot in some ways that I agree that would be much more bold prediction probably at this point. Although I think a lot of people are predicting it anyway, and they're just going to be like, no, he's just lying like every other Star Wars, like every other major, franchise actor does about who's in what and what they're doing. But I think Yoda would have a similar type of response for people where they would want to see Yoda, especially on the heels of Grogu. But you run the risk of maybe a little bit too much of Yoda and Grogu.
Yep. Here's I'm going to use Jeff's comment here as a bold Razor Crest prediction. A long shot is the great grandchild of Markion Ro and Gira Staros. That's a real long shot.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm with you. So that being Riva, sorry, because there was a comment earlier. He was saying Riva is the great grandchild of Gira Staros and Markion Ro. So, hey man, I will personally come up there and shake your hand if you get that one right, Jeff. So
I will. Yeah. I will fly you out to Texas and we will take you out to dinner if you get that one right.
Yeah. We'll split the airfare. We'll put you in a room somewhere.
Yeah, we'll get a nice steak.
Steak somewhere. You can pick the restaurant, even the sides. I'll let you pick the sides.
Yep,
so.
Just got to keep it under $12.25.
Right.
All right. Well, here's a question I put in there for you.
All right.
Actually, I've got another one for you at the end of the show as well.
Okay.
I know I didn't. I'm being you lately. I know. Throw stuff at you don't expect.
Surprise.
All right, so one thing I did throw in here was, will this series set up another series like Mando did for Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka? Are we going to have some other follow-on to this, that there's a natural successor in some kind of way? I know we've kind of answered this before, but I thought I'd get your take on it again after a few weeks.
I feel like I want that to happen only because I like the fact that they're threading these stories together. But this one feels a little different because and the Deborah Chow comment now comes in my head, right? Where she really wants to tie this back to the prequels more than the other stuff. And so from that angle, I would say no, likely not. And it feels like I don't want to say it's a wasted opportunity, but they have an opportunity here to build on the momentum of, Mando 1 and 2 and Book of Boba Fett. Why wouldn't they do that? Especially if they're trying to tell this bigger part of the universe. But then you got to think, okay, well, how do you tie that into the future storytelling? How do you tie that into post Return of the Jedi? And I don't know if there's enough here for that, to do that. If they do, it's going to be something very light, like a cameo or like any one of these characters that we mentioned that shows up and, it's a nod to Peli Motto. Oh, God, I hate that. But Peli Motto shows up in the background. You see her walking. Her hair is not as long. It's not as curly. She only
oh, man, that should have been in our cameo list.
No, I had it in there and I took it out.
100% going to see her.
Okay.
That's my Razor Crest prediction.
No, your Razor Crest prediction
and she's going to be with a Jawa.
Oh, stop it.
Arm in arm with a Jawa.
Maz Kanata is your Razor Crest prediction.
That would be great. She needs to show up somewhere, actually.
Yeah, like in a trash can. Dead somewhere.
Jeez, man, that's brutal.
So I would say, I would say no. Sorry. I don't think it's going to.
Yeah, I would say no.
Yeah, but I think it would be cool. So
I don't think, I think, and you pointed out there's two comments that make this seem very, very unlikely. Mm-hmm. One, like you said, Deborah Chow, this is more aligned with the prequels than anything else. And then the other is Kathleen Kennedy and the stories that were released on Vanity Fair, the interviews on Vanity Fair, where they want to get away from this, this 60-year time frame. And they really want to do something outside of all of that, or at the very least things that, while they might connect to it, you feel like you've got that flexibility of going in a different direction. Mm. And I think this is very much a singular story that they wanted to tell. And because it's just been, you have to feel like you feel compelled to tell it at this point. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that you will linger on or go back to, I think, after this. And so I'm with you. I think this is one and done. Any other connection to it is strictly kind of in that cameo bucket of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, we've got at least 3 movies after this that are directly connected, So
right.
That's when people go, oh, how come Anakin never got a spinoff series? I'm like,
why didn't Anakin get a medal?
He's got.
Oh wait, that's something totally different.
Yeah,
fan fiction.
He's got 6 movies. Go watch them.
And Padme.
True. Okay, so I threw this question out here. It's one of the last questions, and I think I know the answer now that we've had a chance to talk about it. There's one component that I do want to just touch on, but if successful, does this change Disney's strategy in any way of any sort? And what I mean by this is,
Well,
You know,
kind of to
they're
Kathleen Kennedy's last statement, right?
well, exactly. You know, does that fit into this? Is this the last kind of hoorah story that they're going to tell in this era, and just they're never coming back? Um, it also speaks to a lot of the discussion that's been going on lately around recasting characters.
Yeah.
You know, because they're dealing with some big characters. Are they going to touch any more of the big characters at this point? You know, they feel like they may have, I wouldn't say burned, but they feel like they would have done some things differently with Solo. They've got an opportunity here to bring these two characters back, but it is kind of dangerous. And whether it's successful or not may kind of preclude that decision about what they do. But what do you think? Is it gonna change anything?
I think no. And I think the path that they've set forward is pretty much the path forward for the next several years at the very least, and by several, probably 3 to 5. And I don't see you had a follow up in there about McGregor and Christensen specifically coming back and reprising these types of roles. That's what I think this all fits hand in hand with that. And while I think they'd be open to it, it's more about what story would they want to tell, and the overall strategic vision of Kathleen Kennedy and what Disney and Lucasfilm want to do, again, are to build out quote unquote new aspects of the franchise. Build the franchise in completely new. Stop leaning on the past so much. Stop with some of the maybe what we might be called fan service, right? And revisiting a lot of that to where you really do get the you get some incompatibility with what people have seen for so long, and then what you might give them. And I think a Solo is a good example of that in some ways for some people. But we've also seen in a couple of other different areas, do they get it right? Even Luke Skywalker in The Rescue from Mando season 1 still had a lot of conversation around that because of the way that it worked out or it didn't work out, depending on how you viewed that scene. And so I think they're ready to move on from it. I think they also know that there's money to be made in this area. Let's just be honest. But at the same time, you're kind of running low on certain stories that you didn't already fill in other ways. Mm-hmm. But again, there are characters that we would love to see come to life on the screen besides Ahsoka. And that would be characters like Kanan or Hera, or, hopefully Sabine is coming to life. The hero or the Rebels character, Zeb, Ezra. So we might be getting some of them, but we know there's characters in this era that we still want to know more about, or what were they doing at all of these times. So a character like Ahsoka, that character could go any different direction, but directly from this series, I'm not seeing a direct tie-in. But again, we never would have really seen Boba Fett spinning off into, well, some people probably would. I think Mike may have kind of called that one too, but Boba Fett spinning off of the Mandalorian series.
Yeah.
Because we were so hard on Boba Fett even showing up.
Yep. I'm with you too. I don't know that it changes anything. I mean, if I'm Disney, I'm already planning, I'm already looking ahead 10 years, right? Whether you get
they've
there
had
or
this
not,
conversation a year or two ago
exactly.
about whether or not they were going to do anything else after this.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No, I'm with you. And I think for them, it's really about timing of when do we start slowly letting people know that we're going to, how do we softly let people know that we're going to start moving away, distancing ourselves from this era? People would, I know, again, the haters are already out there talking about, oh, look at them, they screwed it all up and they're trying to get away from it and do their own thing. It's like, yeah, however, a cynical view would be that. But you've got to understand, like we've been saying, what are we coming on? We're still 3 years away from the 10-year mark of when Disney came in, right? But you've got the generation that grew up with the sequel trilogy. They're starting to get older. You don't want to lose them because you're not putting out content. So does it make sense for them to start exploring the era prior to, right up until the Force Awakens, or the era after the Force or Rise of Skywalker? And I think the answer is yes. I did a second rewatch of season 2 of Resistance the other day as I was doing some menial chore, and I kept thinking they laid down some really cool characters at the very end. I mean, it's so, like, if you've not seen season 2 of Resistance, and I know a lot of people have not, it's so fast. Like, you can tell that their timeline got shortened. Like, they took what feels like was going to be the next 3 or 4 seasons and possibly setting up more stories in the future as spinoffs and all that. They really condensed that down into just the core stories, and like they introduce these really cool characters and they just disappear, and you don't ever see them again until the very end when they kind of bring everybody back together. But my point is, there's a lot of potential for storytelling out there, and there are a lot of people that watched Resistance that are younger. That 5 years from now they're going to be going, "Hey, where's Kaz? Right? Where's Niku? How come I don't see this alien race that they introduced at the very end that was really cool? That
Where's
all this stuff-
Jaeger? Yeah.
Yeah, Jaeger. Like, where are these guys? Like, you're not telling these stories, right? So I have a feeling like at some point they are going to break away from this era, which I am fine with. Like, I'm an OT person. I'm okay. I've had my fill. I've had plenty of storyline, especially you throw in Legends, which no one's going to ever take away from me. Although it's not canon, they're not going to take those. No one's taking those stories away. No one takes away how I felt about reading those stories. So yeah, let's move on. I'm fine with that. Give me, as long as it's compelling and it's Star Wars, let's do it.
Right. And you want to live in the past anyway. You're ready to go back to some old Republic and see where High Republic goes anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's a whole. I mean,
we talked about that in the Q&A. Yeah, going backwards seems a little easier to do than going forward beyond sequel trilogy. But with regard to this series, it is difficult to see what connections they might make to some of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Andor and some other things, but again, this is very much Obi-Wan and Vader. At least that's how they're positioning it for us. So it's difficult to see. We kind of know where this story goes. So you're not going to go and completely pull all of that apart in another series, I think.
All right.
Okay.
You got one more. You said
I have one more for you. This is
question.
probably the most important question of the day. So I hope everyone is ready to get your answer. What is the epic montage going to be?
I hadn't even thought about that. The epic montage is going to be Vader being assembled. Like some Sith 80s synth music in the background, right?
Some
really
Sith synth.
Yeah, just break the Sith synth. I see what you did there. Sith wave, how about that? And you break break the mold of the music that's come before. And it's just, it's Survivor, the band Survivor playing, and it's him being assembled.
I was hoping it was going to be little Pointer Sisters or something like that. That'd be great.
You got to have it's got to be rock. I mean, you can do that too. I mean, that's more like Footloose, right? More of a poppy kind of montage. But with Vader, I want some like rock, like Survivor. Duh.
That'd be great if you got like the volleyball scene from Top Gun.
Yeah,
which would be totally fitting, right? Because you got Top Gun coming out this weekend too.
Yep. What are we going to get a montage on that?
No,
seriously?
We're not going to get a montage at all.
We're going to get a montage.
No, Deborah Chow's smarter than that.
I think they've already set the standard. What are the things you expect from Star Wars television? Montage. That's at the top of the list. It is. Same thing with
at least like 2 or 3 per season, apparently.
Concept art credits. That's another thing we expect from them.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's going to happen. Sorry, hate to break it to you. Okay.
Well, let me give you one more bonus one, and I don't think this was answered previously. Are we going to get a final credit scene in the last episode like we did with Mandalorian?
A final credit scene? Like
we did going into Book of Boba Fett. Do you think we'll get anything like that? Assuming there's no series coming, but just something else there that would...
I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I would say no. I think, because I mean, depending on how the series ends, I think they want to just... There's some finality to it, right? And I don't know that you need it with this series because, again, we've got 3 more movies that pick this up right after this, right? So what is there left to tell that you can't tell within this 6-hour time frame? Unless they are going to go, try to spin up another series or hint at something, maybe an Andor. I don't know. I don't know what they would do there, but I think it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's going to be show's over, go home.
Yep.
Everybody go home.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Okay. I'm ready to call this. I think I'm ready for the show. I'm excited. Again, we'll be at Celebration when these 2 come out, and we're gonna.
That's actually probably the most exciting part is we'll get to watch this as a group with people.
Yep,
that's a rare opportunity. That is really exciting.
Great. People are gonna see me squealing, and
I'll see you squeal. But here's the even better part: is that we will then see people that night at our meetup. And if you go out to cantinacast.com/events, you can see where to meet us up if you're going to be at Celebration. Like how I did that. That was very slick.
Yeah.
But then we could talk exactly about what happened in Kenobi. It will be very spoilery because we will have watched it probably at the break of dawn before we get ready and go. This is how we will be doing this as Albert makes us chorizo and eggs. We will be watching some Kenobi.
Let's do that. I'm sorry, you got me excited.
It's a
You said
tradition. I
chorizo.
know it's a tradition now.
Yeah.
That's what we did last time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we watch this, and we'd love for everyone to come out and talk Kenobi with us, because we know that's just going to be the hot topic all day Friday, all night Friday, and just for probably the rest of the weekend, and a bunch of rewatches anytime we get a chance. So I'm super excited about that. It's like a live watch party. I can't believe they didn't actually do something like that and schedule that for this 3 stages.
Yeah.
They're doing it for Siege of Mandalore, and they're doing it for, are they doing Attack of the Clone screening? Or is it just I think it's just a celebration event of it.
Right.
But they're actually doing the Siege of Mandalore viewing,
Showing it.
which is pretty cool. I just don't know if we're going to be able to make it.
Now you got me thinking about all the food I want to make, like chorizo and eggs, and I can make some menudo. We can have some barbacoa if you want to have that. I'd have to bring.
I'm on board.
I'd have to pack a crock pot though to make that, and we'd have to find cheap meat, which
Yeah.
I think we might be able to find
I
around
think-
the LAX airport.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right. We could find a guy.
We'll get real
Get a guy
ethnic.
that knows a guy.
Yeah, we'll get real ethnic up in this trip.
That's right.
Okay, you want to do shout outs?
Oh, yes. We actually had
did you
a.
keep track?
I did actually. Thank
Wow.
you very much. You can always tell. I can't lie to you because I'll just stumble all the way through it if I did.
Scroll.
Right. Yeah. Ken, Jonathan, Lauren, Kathy, Risk, J Dubs, Rob, Mark, Hugh Weiler, name I haven't seen in the chat before. I recognize it elsewhere though. Alex, Hard Countered, and Dale. Thank you everybody for showing up tonight. We had a really lively chat. We had a lot of people in the background watching as well. So thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to this on the podcast, thank you for downloading it first of all. But we are live at least once a week, hopefully twice a week. And this is a bit of a special episode because of the travel and all that. But we'd love for you to come out and check out the live stream on YouTube, Facebook. It's also going on Twitter. You can also find the replays there as well. But YouTube is usually the easiest one. You can go and subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the little bell. And Facebook will do the same thing if you're still on the Facebooks. So thank you
Cool.
for everyone for showing out, and check us out if you're wanting to see Albert's smiling face and see what shirt he's going to wear.
I've got them all lined up. Again, they're pressed, ready to go.
Tonight he's wearing a blue and white Galaxy's Edge shirt,
Yeah, you can't see. It says.
which is ironic because he's never been to Galaxy's Edge.
I've never been. Well, that's funny.
And he
because-
probably will not go after this trip either.
Can you see
And
the
it's
back?
Walt Disney World from Florida.
Can you see the back?
Lean forward.
Uh,
No, your other forward. No, you're forward, not
left
backward.
forward. Oh, sorry.
Okay, it sasays Walt Disney World. Is that Walt Disney World in Orabesh too?
Yeah, no, it actually
it-
says crew. It's like this is a shirt that you
Oh.
got if you were like working there. I bought it on Facebook. Leave me alone. I thought it was cool. I was like,
Okay.
wow, that's kind of cool. I like the blue color.
At least the one I bought. So the Galaxy's Edge shirt I bought when I was actually there was one of the exclusives for DVC members.
Oh,
So
wow.
you had to be a member in order to be able to buy it. But the funny part was I couldn't
Okay.
fit into it really at the time. So until I lost a little bit, so like, got a little better in shape, and
Yeah.
then now I can actually wear it.
Who's got the last laugh now?
That's right. No, I don't know. I don't know if there's no laugh to have actually, but
As this will be the last episode that we'll do before celebration. That's kind of sad, actually.
yeah, I don't know I don't know what our programming notes look like here for, for a
Well,
little while.
So I will say this. So we are going to obviously do the show on Thursday. So Thursday again will be, I'm sorry, that's not the wrong one. Podcast stage at 11 a.m. And we haven't mentioned it on this show tonight, but again, author Claudia Gray, will be joining us on the stage as well. So we'll have
Cool.
have her there sitting next to us and then doing the panel. And she's
Definitely try not
nope,
to make a fool of ourselves. Yeah.
that's not true. What you just said is wrong. That's what I'm going to give her a sign that says wrong. I'm literally going to do this and let her hold that up every time we make a mistake. And she doesn't have to say anything else, but just hold it up.
Right.
But
Maybe
she
a
will
little
be there.
bell.
Exactly. Stop. But she will be there, and we're going to record that. Definitely do audio. We will probably have a way to do video. I'm bringing my camera so we can record the video. We'll mix those together, and at some point, we'll release the video for that on YouTube, right? The thing that's unclear at this time is the streaming capabilities. They've mentioned to us that it is possible. I've reached out to our podcast host now twice. He's actually, this is Mark Newbold. He's going to be performing as well on the podcast stage. And he does not have the answer to how we're supposed to do the streaming. So this question is still out there. But the minute we know what those details are, hopefully we can get that set up. And so if you happen to be off on Thursday at 11 a.m., if you want to watch the show live, we'll figure out a way to make that happen. So no guarantees at this point because we're at 0 hour now. We still don't have a lot of details. So unless we can just crash course this thing and wing it. That may not be a possibility.
And Thursday and Friday are really packed days. I mean, we're literally start to finish pretty packed, but we will get those out as fast as we can. Also, we know that we want to get a review of, or at least our thoughts and feedback on the first couple of episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course.
Yep.
We also want to bring you guys as much information and news, especially for the bigger events or for the bigger things that come out while we're there. So we will try to do as much as we can and get it sent out to y'all. Appreciate y'all's patience as well, but we'll definitely, we're bringing equipment with us to be able to do these things, maybe a couple other things with some other friends of ours while we're there. So again, we will do our best to get as much pumped out to y'all as quickly as we can, knowing that it's a very busy weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be busy. So, and then after that, we'll do something similar we did with 2019, where we come back and kind of do a recap show, right? I think we went day by day or something. I don't remember.
I have a feeling we're going to have a every day of the week show just to try to catch up.
Yeah. So, hey, we'll let you know. Just stay tuned to all the social media stuff. If you're a Patreon member, obviously you'll see updates there. And yeah, good luck. Safe travels to anybody that's heading out to Celebration as well. We hope to see you guys there. And plug the meetup.
Yeah, so the meetup. Yeah, so again, Thursday there's a podcasters meetup at the Hilton Anaheim, and then we are hosting our own meetup over at Unsung Brewing on Friday, the 27th at 7 p.m. Again, no reservations are necessary, but we would like if you told us you were coming out just to make sure we got a good head count. CantinaCast.com/RSVP, and once again, that's on Friday the 27th at 7 p.m. local time, which is Pacifico.
And I got buttons, I got stickers, I got free books. I've got lanyards. I've got pins. You name it, man. I'm coming.
You're not going to want to miss that.
Well, now I'm bringing the crock pot apparently, so I can make barbacoa for us on Saturday morning. So got that going for us as well.
Sweet.
All right, man. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, we will see everyone on the other side. Travel safe, and thank you guys so much for coming out tonight.
Yep. We'll see y'all later.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.